S. E. Hinton's The Outsiders, first published in 1967, remains one of the most powerful young adult novels ever written, not just because of its engaging plot, but because it grapples with timeless questions of identity, belonging, and the invisible lines that divide people. Set in Tulsa, Oklahoma, during the mid-1960s, the book thrusts us into a world of teenage gangs, class conflict, and fragile bonds of brotherhood. It explores what it means to come of age in a world that often feels harsh and unyielding, while also highlighting the small acts of kindness and humanity that keep people from being crushed by it. At the heart of the story is Ponyboy Curtis, a 14-year-old boy who narrates with a mixture of innocence and reflective wisdom. Ponyboy belongs to the Greasers, a working-class gang marked by their leather jackets, greased hair, and rough reputations. Across town live the Sox, short for socials, the wealthier, privileged kids who drive nice cars, wear preppy clothes, and have the luxury of not worrying about survival. Ponyboy's perspective allows readers to experience the raw intensity of this divide, where every glance, fight, or rumor carries the weight of social class tension. The Greasers are not simply a gang, they're a surrogate family. Ponyboy lives with his older brothers Derry and Soda Pop after their parents were killed in a car accident. Derry, only 20, has sacrificed his own future to raise his brothers, working long hours while struggling to balance authority and brotherhood. Soda Pop, Ponyboy's charismatic 16-year-old brother, is full of optimism and charm, serving as the glue that holds the family together. These three brothers embody the fragile balance between love and tension in a household where survival depends on unity. Around them is the larger Greaser crew: Johnny Cade, sensitive and scarred from years of abuse at home; Dallas, Dally, Winston, hardened by life on the streets and full of reckless bravado; Two-Bit Matthews, the joker who masks seriousness with humor; and Steve Randall, Soda Pop's best friend, fiercely loyal but always a bit hostile toward Ponyboy. Each character represents a different response to poverty and exclusion. Some grow tough, some grow wounded, and others cling to laughter. Together, they make up a chosen family, bound less by violence than by shared struggle. The Sox, by contrast, seem to have everything. They are wealthier, cleaner-cut, and glide through life in Mustangs and Corvairs. But Hinton resists painting them as one-dimensional villains. Characters like Cherry Valance, a girl who connects with Ponyboy at a drive-in movie, reveal that the Sox, too, feel pressure and alienation, though it is masked by their privilege. Cherry confides that things are rough all over, suggesting that wealth doesn't erase loneliness or the need to belong. Yet the material gap still makes all the difference. For the Greasers, survival is the daily battle. For the Sox, it's image and status. The story accelerates when Ponyboy and Johnny have a violent run-in with a group of Sox. After leaving the movies with Cherry and her friend Marcia, Ponyboy and Johnny are cornered in a park by Sox, including Bob Sheldon, Cherry's boyfriend. In the chaos, Bob tries to drown Ponyboy in a fountain. Desperate and terrified, Johnny kills Bob with a switchblade. This act of violence changes everything. It pushes Ponyboy and Johnny out of their familiar world and forces them into hiding, setting in motion a sequence of choices that test loyalty, courage, and morality. Dally, ever the hardened street survivor, helps the boys flee. He gives them money, a gun, and advice, directing them to hide in an abandoned church in Windricksville. There, Ponyboy and Johnny spend days reading Gone with the Wind, sharing stories, and watching sunsets. These quiet moments are rare in a novel filled with turbulence, and they underscore Hinton's point. Even in lives marked by violence, young people yearn for beauty, meaning, and connection. Ponyboy's reflections on sunsets, in particular, become a recurring symbol of shared humanity. Both Greasers and Sox see the same sky. Their brief sanctuary ends when the church catches fire, with children trapped inside. Ponyboy and Johnny rush into the flames to save them, displaying selflessness that transcends the Greaser stereotype. Though they succeed in rescuing the children, Johnny is critically injured, his small body broken by the collapsing beams. The fire transforms Johnny into a tragic hero, fragile, courageous, and finally recognized for the quiet strength he carried all along. Ponyboy himself emerges as more than a gang kid. He becomes a boy capable of great empathy. The boy's heroism attracts media attention, briefly reframing the greasers as protectors rather than delinquents. But the broader conflict between greasers and socks only intensifies. A rumble is arranged, one more brutal showdown in the cycle of revenge. For Ponyboy, the fight feels increasingly senseless. Victory will not bring wealth, erase scars, or heal the divisions between groups. Yet the greasers, driven by loyalty and pride, enter the battle anyway. Meanwhile, Johnny's condition worsens. In the hospital, he tells Ponyboy to stay gold, echoing a Robert Frost poem they once read together. The phrase becomes the novel's emotional centerpiece, a plea to hold on to innocence, wonder, and kindness despite the inevitability of growing older and harder. Johnny's death devastates the greasers, particularly Dally, whose rough exterior cracks under the weight of grief. Dally's desperation leads him to a reckless confrontation with the police, ending in his own death, a kind of suicide by cop. These twin losses shake Ponyboy to his core. In losing Johnny and Dally, he loses two anchors of his identity: Johnny, the fragile reminder of goodness, and Dally, the hardened protector. Ponyboy spirals into illness and grief, barely able to process the trauma. Yet this collapse becomes the crucible through which he matures. The novel forces him to wrestle with the brutal reality that violence destroys even those who seem invincible. The climax gives way to reflection. Ponyboy, recovering from his physical and emotional wounds, faces not only the reality of gang life, but the expectations of school and society. His English teacher encourages him to write a personal story, and it is here that the novel circles back on itself. The Outsiders is framed as the essay Ponyboy composes, his attempt to give meaning to everything that happened. Through writing, he transforms personal tragedy into a universal story, reminding readers that narratives can preserve dignity even when life seems unbearable. Themes of class divide pulse through the novel. The greasers and socks embody America's structural inequalities. One group has cars, parties, and parental support. The other scrapes by with part-time jobs and brotherhood as their safety net. Yet Hinton complicates the binary. She shows that both groups share loneliness, identity struggles, and the need for belonging. In today's world, where economic inequality continues to expand, the novel's portrait of invisible lines between groups remains eerily relevant. Violence and masculinity also loom large. For the greasers, toughness is survival. Weakness can be fatal. But Hinton questions whether violence truly provides safety or simply perpetuates cycles of destruction. The deaths of Bob, Johnny, and Dally expose the futility of fights and the devastating cost of equating manhood with aggression. Modern readers can easily draw parallels to communities where systemic poverty leaves young men with few paths besides gangs, fights, or prisons. Friendship and chosen family, however, shine as redemptive forces. Despite their flaws, the greasers care for one another with intensity. Derry sacrifices his youth to raise his brothers. Ponyboy and Johnny share moments of beauty and hiding. Even Dally's last desperate actions are fueled by love for Johnny. These bonds remind readers that in harsh environments, relationships can provide resilience, even when institutions fail. The motif of sunsets becomes a poetic thread binding the novel. Ponyboy and Cherry both notice the same sunsets, symbolizing shared humanity across divides. The image suggests that while social categories like greaser or SOC define people in Tulsa, there exists a larger common experience: beauty, mortality, yearning, that transcends class. In a polarized society, the sunset becomes a quiet call for empathy. The book also wrestles with the fragile line between childhood and adulthood. Ponyboy, at 14, is old enough to be pulled into violence, but still young enough to marvel at sunsets and poetry. Johnny's plea to stay gold resonates as a reminder of the fleeting nature of innocence. In a culture where young people are often forced to grow up too fast, whether through poverty, violence, or systemic neglect, the novel's meditation on youth remains poignant. The Outsiders also reflects Hinton's groundbreaking achievement as a teenage author. She wrote the novel at just 16, capturing the rawness of adolescent voice in a way adults rarely could. Her decision to tell the story from a greaser's perspective was radical. She humanized kids often written off as criminals or delinquents. Today, the novel stands as a testament to the power of youth voices in literature and activism. For modern audiences, the story resonates in discussions of social justice, inequality, and empathy. The idea that things are rough all over anticipates current conversations about privilege and marginalization. It challenges readers to look beyond stereotypes, whether based on class, race, or neighborhood, and to recognize the individual humanity in every group. In an era defined by polarization, this message carries urgent relevance. The Outsiders also endures because it acknowledges grief and trauma honestly. The deaths of Johnny and Dally are not sanitized, they are brutal, unfair, and permanent. Yet the novel doesn't end in nihilism. Ponyboy's active writing becomes a model for healing, transforming pain into narrative, grief into art. It suggests that even in the face of devastating loss, people can create meaning and leave behind a legacy of understanding. Stylistically, Hinton blends action with poetry. Her descriptions of sunsets and Frost's verse elevate a story of gangs into a meditation on beauty and mortality. She never romanticizes violence, but instead shows its inevitability in a broken system. Her voice, unpolished yet earnest, captures the contradictions of adolescence, toughness and vulnerability, despair and hope, destruction and creation. In the end, The Outsiders is not simply a story of gangs and fights. It is a story about identity, about who we are when society labels us, and how we can see each other as human despite the labels. It is about the fragility of innocence and the cost of survival. Above all, it is about empathy, the courage to look across divides and recognize that sunsets belong to everyone. That is why the novel continues to resonate with new generations. Whether read in classrooms or discovered independently, it speaks to the timeless experience of feeling like an outsider, of yearning for connection, and of seeking meaning in a divided world. Its call to stay gold lingers long after the final page, a reminder that while violence and inequality shape our lives, our capacity for empathy, beauty, and storytelling can still redeem them. That's it for now. Consider liking the video and subscribing for more literary content. We hope to see you in the next video.